So, hi everyone. I'm Michelle Jones, Senior Security Architect at Pokemon Company International. Um, just so you know, I'm a little sick, so I'm going to try and cough this way away from the mic so that, uh, anyway. So, I have 9 years of experience in the security industry, holding various analyst and leadership roles. John Wisniewski, our Director of Information Security, he hired me on board October 2017. And he told me, hey, build a security operations center. And I was like, okay. So I needed someone to help me out with that, to kind of help carry out the strategic vision for this SOC. And so I stole Sean Hastings from the United States Navy. He was just getting out of the military, so that he could help me in that endeavor.
Yeah, that timing worked out really well for me. And it's really been a dream job thus far. We've been able to lean really progressively into emerging technology automation, and that's where I primarily come in. A lot of the work that I've done over the last year and a half, time flies, a year and a half, has been automating a lot of our processes, not just security-based, but also those that enable our business and make things flow a lot easier. In addition to the two of us, we have a SOC engineer. We've got a few other security engineers working primarily on the cloud architecture side. But that's what Michelle and I are primarily focused on: solving problems, automating, taking care of the SOC.
Cool.
So, is there anybody who doesn't know what Pokemon is?
That's a good question.
Probably not. But to give the context of what you need to know for this discussion, we've been around for 20-some, maybe closer to 30 years, and the Pokemon Company International was originally spun off of the Pokemon Company in Japan to handle retail licensing outside of Japan and Korea, which in itself was an offshoot of Nintendo. We've got a weird kind of org chart there. But it was like that for a good 20 years, just, sending out the TV show, printing the card game, so on and so on. And then Pokemon Go hit in 2016, and in addition to making us a ton of money, probably getting us the closest to world peace we've ever been, it also was a really transformative period for the company when we realized that we have made the transition to a tech company, and we need to start bolstering our company to handle that increased load with millions upon millions of Pokemon Go users. We started to push out more of our own apps, more of our own kind of complementary digital products for the retail products that we've always been releasing. And as a result, we onboarded about 200 new employees, all pretty much in the technology organization. We created our own in-house game studio, brought in a bunch of DevOps engineers, game studio people. We grew a tremendous amount in the last couple of years. We're now at about 800 employees. Like when this slide was created, that's how fast we grow. It was 500, a couple of months ago. But we have those spread between our main office in Bellevue and a satellite office in London. As far as what things look like behind the scenes, we are huge AWS customers. Like 95% of our architecture is in the cloud. That which isn't is being transitioned every day as we move our on-prem stuff to Azure, to AWS. We should be almost completely cloud resident in probably in the next couple of years. And lastly, our goal ever since we arrived at the office as an InfoSec team is to enable the business to continue running at the same pace that it has always run, or arguably at a increased pace as we push out more and more products. So we want to insert security without slowing down the development of those products, and that's something that Michelle will touch on
Right. So last year at Illuminate 2018, John Wisniewski, our Director of Information Security, and George Gerchow, CSO of Sumo Logic, they gave a presentation actually over there called Automate Your Socks Off. And it was based on, they gave kind of some principles off building a lean security team in the digital area. One of the things that they had brought up in their presentation is something called the OODA Loop. And OODA stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. It's very often cited, if you haven't heard of it. It's very often cited, it's simple, and it's really easy to use. But you're probably thinking, everyone does that. Everyone observes and orients and decides and acts. And that's, very true. However, that would imply that the OODA Loop is an action. We should think of the OODA Loop as a mental model or paradigm or a simplistic way of looking at the world or our environment. So when circumstances change, we often fail to shift our perspective, and instead we choose to see the world the way that we feel it should be. For example, so I live an hour and a half away from work every morning. It's a pretty crazy commute, but I use my Google GPS every single morning. And I don't know what you guys use to travel for GPS, but I do it every single morning because I want to know how long it's going to take me to get to work. I want to know if there's traffic, et cetera, et cetera. So if I make a wrong turn, or if you make a wrong turn when you are using your GPS, you'll notice that your app essentially reorients itself based on traffic patterns, or you just took a wrong turn, or there's a car accident, et cetera, et cetera. Their GPS is essentially using the OODA Loop by deciding and acting based on your circumstances or your environment. It's shifting its perspective because you just made a change. And that's kind of what the OODA Loop is based off, is the ability to adapt very quickly to changing circumstances. So one of the questions that George and John asked themselves was, how am I applying my resources to speed up my OODA Loop? And so as SOC analysts, well, at the time SOC analysts, we ask ourselves the same question. What are our resources surrounding the SOC, and how are we applying those resources to speed up our OODA Loop? So 3 key takeaways. Learn how people are the foundation of the SOC and not technology. If we want to kind of have this next generation SOC, people have to change the way they think about themselves as security professionals. I go to a lot of larger organizations where security professional, they're assigned to one task. They do one thing, and sometimes they do something that an IT can do, like change firewall rules. But what we want to get to is we want to change the way security professionals themselves think about themselves. They have the attitude and aptitude to fix problems, to be a problem solver. We don't want to have them be just these tier 1 people who all they do is submit tickets based off on alert. We want people to actually think. Are they allowed to be smart people? Are they allowed to work together and collaborate and make decisions based on their intelligence? So learn how people are the foundation of the SOC. Learn new business practices to modernize your SOC. Again, are we business enablers or are we business blockers? If a developer, and I'm sure you guys have your share of developer stories and how, I won't say what I'm about to say, but essentially, you want to not say no. You want to say yes, but we want to make things more secure, efficient, and effective. And then learn how to build and remain an agile team of teams. How am I resolving incidents at a quicker pace? How do I speed up my OODA Loop while doing my own InfoSec projects at the same time?
All right. Well,
I think I skipped a slide.
That's fine. We'll blast through since
Yeah, we
took
skipped
too
a
long in
slide.
the intro.
Yeah.
So these are a lot of buzzwords. Cool. What this basically breaks down to is there are a few things, as at least former SOC analyst, there are a few things that I need when an incident strikes, right? I need to be able to resolve it quickly, and I need to be able to resolve it from anywhere. So that's the sort of the mobility and the time based factors. I need the right people available immediately in the room, and for most security use cases, that's generally IT. IT, they're the ones who manage the endpoints. They're often the ones who manage the firewalls. They're the ones who often manage the email systems. Without IT as a critical part of our incident response procedure, it would take us an incredible amount of time to rally the right kinds of people, to explain, to get them doing what they need to do, and awareness. I need the ability to see what those IT specialists are doing. I need to have that situational awareness of what's going on at all times, preferably in one single spot. And lastly, we just need to be enabled by our leadership to make quick decisions without passing it through a million different people for approval. And so those are largely the principles of the OODA Loop as we utilize it.
Right, so our threats are constantly changing, and not just threats, but also the type of things that are business units or internal other teams, what they're doing constantly changes. The way they operate constantly changes, and so we adapted the OODA Loop to adapt to those changes. I skipped the slide, but essentially what it said was this isn't a presentation based on, I'm not going to tell you what you need to monitor. Every organization is different, right? You might have an HR team who wants you to monitor what kind of emojis are being created in Slack. It could be anything, right? What the purpose of this is to kind of understand, like, how are you thinking about your SOC to turn it into a next generation SOC? It's going to be different for every single one of us. What we're about to show you here might not work for you, but this is kind of how we adapted to constant changes so that we can speed up our OODA Loop.
So we're not here to shame anybody. In fact, we were actually here not too long ago. Our tech department, like I alluded to, is only about 2 years old. Before that, it was just a bunch of developers doing the best that they could, which wasn't great. So over time, we have had to rapidly build up our monitoring, to build up our response capabilities. And something that we saw as we were building that out, we chose to dump everything into our SIM, Sumo Logic, which makes sense, so you have all that visibility. We used Guard Duty, we used a few of those other tools to try to filter out what's important, what's not. And we found that we were spending so much time addressing false positives and in this constant state of, I think they call it alert fatigue, that we didn't have any time to focus on those things that actually brought the company some degree of value. We notice a lot of our peers also often like to compartmentalize these different departments, IT and InfoSec development teams. You often see that they're separated, at least logically, and don't communicate quite as often as they maybe should, given their shared infrastructure, their shared issues that come up. So we moved very rapidly away from sort of a tiered system. We situated ourselves directly between the IT teams and the DevOps teams, as well as between the lunchroom and the bathroom. So as these people would come by our desks, they would say, oh, hey, while I'm here, I noticed when we were deploying this instance, I think this is misconfigured, let me run this past you. And we really started to develop a relationship and a partnership with these other business organizations into a sort of situation where we're almost one team at this point, IT, InfoSec, DevOps.
So here's our SOC, our team of teams. We got InfoSec, DevOps, IT developers, NOC, and you're probably wondering what all this really means. So when John Wisniewski told me to build a SOC, I had a lot that I needed to think about in terms of how will the SIM fit into our organization, and what am I going to need it for? For starters, I needed it to be the core of all visibility that we have. So if I wanted to put tools around the SIM to integrate with the SIM or to work with the SIM that didn't get their own visibility, then the SIM was going to be able to give that visibility to my automation tools, for example, like Demisto. Sumo Logic was a lot more cost effective than other people, like, maybe I shouldn't say.
No, we should
Amongst
not.
other great qualities that Sumo Logic has compared to another competitor, we really like the support that we got from Sumo Logic as a whole. We have a shared Slack channel actually with our tech engineer, and he responds within 30 minutes, which is a lot faster than the actual SLAs on our contracts. Anyway, I wanted to tell the SIM what I wanted to look for, because I didn't want those false positives, right? And I really like the flexibility and the maneuverability that you have with Sumo Logic to tell it, this is exactly what I want to look for, and it's scalable. So amongst other decisions that went along with getting Sumo Logic, we really wanted to strategize how we were going to get the rest of the company to use Sumo Logic. It was really important to us that the more logs people wanted to put into Sumo Logic or what they wanted to use, the more visibility that I get as a SOC analyst. And also, once you have a tool that's kind of rooted itself into an organization, and you might be thinking of the government right now, it's really difficult to rip it out. And that's kind of the same effect that I wanted to have, because it's going to help me justify the cost of Sumo Logic over time. And so now Sumo Logic has provided us training to over 80 individuals in our organization. And believe me when I say, like, probably about 20% of those people weren't actually technical people at all. They actually struggled through the training, but that wasn't the purpose of giving them the training. The purpose of the training was for them to see that Sumo Logic exists in my organization, to get their creative juices flowing through their minds and be like, hey, what can I use Sumo Logic for? So that they would want to put their logs into Sumo Logic and I would get visibility. So in a way, we were just really being sneaky about getting logs.
True.
But it's resulted greatly because we became business enablers and people saw what we could provide for them. They saw that we could provide like amazing dashboards or insights or information sharing, collaboration through Sumo Logic. And they ended up becoming part of our SOC. And so here's what that looks like.
Yeah. Speaking of which, here's a one sort of technical slide. But what we're trying to show here, there's several different use cases actually. In the top, that one right there, that is a CrowdStrike alert, right? And it's pretty standard. We use Sumo Logic as our centralized alerting platform. All of our tools, they all feed into Sumo Logic, and from there, that's where we filter down our data, because most of the data we don't really care about. But we choose what we do care about, and we send it all to Slack. Slack spaces that we share with the IT department, that we share with the developers. And so when a security alert goes off, we're not the only ones seeing it immediately. The DevOps team, the IT team, they know as soon as we do. You don't know these people, but a lot of the people responding in that thread are our IT guys saying, hey, this is what the problem is. I'm doing this to take care of it. Not. It makes us so much quicker in addressing these issues. And as we started to roll out these use cases and show people what Sumo is capable of, suddenly IT's coming to us and they're like, hey, well, you know, we're interested in knowing when people create AD accounts, or hey, we've had a lot of Mac failures lately. Can you guys help us identify what the problem is? We're like, yeah, of course. And so we create these alerts, we pipe them to channels that we share with IT, and it allows us, again, to address these issues very, very quickly. We've got the mobility, I can address them from home or wherever else. And all the stakeholders, again, are there. We've got the expertise in one place.
Not only that, but what also resulted of us sharing these Slack channels and sharing these alerts with all of these different teams was that you had the actual experts in those systems. They know what's going on with the systems. I don't. And a lot of different SOCs that I've been in the past, it was like, okay, where is this firewall? Like, I don't know anything about it, like what changed with it, or, I just didn't have that information. But instead, you actually have someone who is seeing the same exact thing you're seeing. And a lot of the times what ended up happening was they hopped onto that alert before I did, which was fantastic for security people, because all I really ended up having to do, all that Sean had to do, was become security incident oversight rather than actually handling the incident themselves. I highlighted this green box of the collaboration because you get immediate response and collaboration. And this is all on Slack. So another plus to this is it's on my phone. So if I'm at a conference, such as this one, and obviously I don't have my phone on me right now, but right when I get off, if there's an incident going on back at Pokemon, then Mike Wasserman, who is one of our SOC analysts, he's going to be our incident response team lead, and he's going to tell us everything that is happening in this Slack channel thread related to that alert. So I'm going to maintain situational awareness wherever I am and provide my input or my feedback into what is happening to make sure that the incident is remediated to the best that it could possibly be. You got anything else? Oh, we're
I mean,
we're taking way too long. Our time's run out.
Yeah, 60 seconds. Okay, so the big picture here is we have recycled this process using Sumo as a centralized platform to bring everybody together to, again, not just solve the security use cases, but we've sort of opened ourselves up to solving the problems that the company is dealing with. We have taken processes that had a dozen manual touch points, took weeks to accomplish, and by baking in Sumo Logic, this shared SOC idea, and automation, which is triggered from Sumo Logic, we've been able to take these processes to one manual touch point that completes in about 30 seconds or so. So it has brought an immense amount of value to the company, and frankly to Michelle and I, because we no longer have to waste our time putting out fires, chasing the next big emergency. We can focus on, again, the things that bring the company value, like these seemingly simple but very impactful use cases that make the company more efficient, PCI compliance, all the big beasts that the security team really should be focused on.
Yeah, so when it comes to external relationships or any relationships that we build, we really need to start thinking about people being the foundation of everything that we do, rather than tools, throwing a tool to solve a problem. And so we build external relationships with vendors like Sumo Logic because they create amazing tools. They create an amazing platform for us to do our jobs. And in return, we are able to actually show them what we do with Sumo Logic in the field. It's important to us that we provide that feedback to them so that they can continue helping us protect people in general. So that's our common goal there. We find that tools become a medium in which we gain trust with people. Tools allow us to share information. They allow us to collaborate. They allow us to actually become a team. And so that was a big part of the strategy of us getting Sumo Logic, was getting people on board with security and getting people on board with our team.
Are you got any last words?
So there's Illuminate 2018, the in summary for that, and here is the one for 2019. And you'll notice that it's the same exact strategy, except just a few little different words put in there. Build a flexible, agile security delivery pipeline, and then build a flexible and agile security team for incident response, and go beyond your SOC analysts. Mm-hmm. So while this may not work for you, the real questions, or what we did may not work for you, but the real question you should be asking is, how are you making your team more agile? What are your resources, and how are you using your resources to speed up your OODA Loop? Thanks.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll get off stage. Thanks, guys.
Oh, we'll be here for questions. Or
yeah.
there or there, somewhere. Thank you.